Hey everybody, and welcome to our first online lecture. You're going to have one of these every week on Mondays. They should be videos, probably 10 minutes or less, just giving you some of the basic notes that you're going to need for the week. This week starting is actually going to be a review, but since we've been off for 3 weeks now, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page, and we're going to go back, restart this unit, and then we will move forward rather quickly. Each day is going to consist of about 20 minutes of work, and then Thursday there's going to be a little lab that you can do at home. But there's a whole entire description of everything on Google Classroom. As always, if you guys need anything, please email me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Some of these days have a portion that you can print out and fill in. If you don't have access to a printer, you can just copy these notes down by hand as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So we are looking again at the hydrologic cycle, and the hydrologic cycle is just a fancy name for the water cycle. That prefix you see right here, hydro, literally means water. Okay, so here is the hydrologic cycle in all of its glory. And again, these are trees, this is a mountain, this is showing rainfall, and then a buildup over here. These are not chicken nuggets, I know what you're thinking, but these are trees. So first thing we are going to start at is condensation. So go ahead, if you need to pause the video at any point to fill any of this in, that is fine. You can rewatch it as much as you want. If you guys are getting bored and missing class, I understand. But yeah, first thing we're going to look at is condensation. So you go ahead and fill those in. Then if you flip over your notes, or if you've printed a second side, your definitions are on the back. So the first thing we filled in is condensation. So you need to look for the definition that says the opposite of evaporation. Condensation occurs when a gas is changed into a liquid. So we have water vapor that's in the air, it cools down, and again, when molecules are cooled down, they slow down and condense together, and that's where we get our condensation. Once we get enough of these molecules brought together, they start to get heavy, and eventually they want to fall back to the earth. And we call this process precipitation. Now, precipitation occurs in 4 different forms. Now, there are some varying types between these 4 forms, but the 4 main forms are rain, sleet, snow, and hail. So that is when precipitation is when the temperature and atmospheric pressure are right. The small droplets of water in clouds form larger droplets, which then fall to the earth. Okay, next up, once that precipitation falls to the earth, it's going to do one of 2 things. We're going to look at the first one, which is when that precipitation runs off the surface. So runoff. Much of the water that returns to Earth as precipitation runs off the surface of the land and flows downhill into streams, rivers, ponds, and lakes. So as it flows down the hill, it's eventually going to meet a large body of water. And we call that process accumulation. And you might have heard this term before when you hear people talk about things on the weather, like you get 4 inches of accumulation, which is just the buildup of something like snow. So accumulation is the collection and buildup of precipitation in an area. And you could have accumulation of rain, accumulation of snow, accumulation of sleet, and accumulation of hail. Most commonly you see accumulation of snow, but you can have accumulation of rain, which is like a flood. So after you have accumulation, you have this buildup of an area. The sun, which fuels the hydrologic cycle, beats down on this accumulation and causes the molecules to speed up and spread out, and eventually those molecules evaporate, which you get our next step, which is evaporation. So evaporation is the process where a liquid, in this case water, changes from its liquid state to a gaseous state, or it goes from a liquid to a vapor. We previously learned this as vaporization, but evaporation is another subcategory of that, along with boiling. All right, so now we have the right side of the hydrologic cycle completed. So water condenses, falls, runs off, evaporates after it accumulates, and it continues to cycle. Now, if the water is not going to run off the surface of the land, it's actually going to be soaked into the ground. If you remember, this process is called infiltration. The water is going in to the ground. So when the water is in the ground, the definition here is rainwater soaks into the ground through the soil and underlying rock layers. So the water that's not running off towards nearby surface drainage features is being sucked into the ground like a sponge. Now, when it's in the ground, it's going to want to move sideways. And we call that process percolation. Percolation is that side-to-side movement of water once it's already in the ground. The exact definition we're going to use is the lateral movement of water in the soil subsurface towards nearby surface drainage features. Now, when you see the word subsurface, that just means below the surface. So that is, after it's in the ground, it's going to move through the ground. So either it's going to percolate through the ground and it's going to eventually come out into water and accumulate again, or it's going to percolate through the ground and then be absorbed by the the trees. Once the trees absorb the water, they go through a process, which is our final process here, called transpiration. Now, your definition for transpiration says, as plants absorb water from the soil, the water moves from the roots through the stems to the leaves. Once the water reaches the leaves, some of it evaporates from the leaves, adding to the amount of water vapor in the air. This process of evaporation through plant leaves is called transpiration. Okay. And that is it. So you should have a completed hydrologic cycle and all of your definitions to go along with it. That is what this week is focusing on. There are a few other activities on your Google Classroom post, but please make sure you're checking back every day to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is new for everybody, so if you guys feel confused and lost, it's okay. You're probably not alone. Just please make sure you take your time and ask for help when you need help. I hope you guys are enjoying your time off. Bummed that we're not back yet, but hopefully we'll see you guys before the end of the year. All right, have a great day.